Over the years, I've made hundreds of videos about creating attraction, but very few about the insanely common and insanely frustrating phenomenon of losing it. Here's the thing, attraction doesn't just vanish by accident. It slips away because of tiny mistakes most men don't even know they're making. Mistakes I'll be explaining in detail in this video. And no, losing attraction doesn't just happen when you first meet a girl. It can happen weeks, months, or even years into a relationship. In this video, I'm going to break down all that and more. This is why women lose attraction. Let's dive in. When it comes to women losing attraction, there are three distinct timelines to consider. The short term, which is from the very start of the interaction up to a few minutes in. The medium term, which is that entire first interaction with her all the way up until you are having sex with her, which can actually span the time of multiple dates. And then the long term, which goes from when you're having consistent sex all the way until however long of a relationship you want to have, including marriage. Now, the things men do in each of these timelines are related. Some things are just fundamentally unattractive, but there are key distinctions. So as we go through, you'll notice a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences. All right, so let's start at the beginning, literally. The short term. One of the earliest and most common mistakes men make is having a weak or hesitant approach. When you approach a woman in this manner, not only is appearing weak and hesitant already unattractive in its own right, but it makes her wonder why you seem that way. Is it because what you're doing is wrong? Is it because you're insecure? Is it because there's something shady going on? So not only are you not being assertive, which would be what an attractive man would be, but it really makes her question what's going on. She may have liked you from across the room, but when you open your mouth and start being weak and hesitant, that attraction will fade pretty much instantly. The next incredibly common mistake men make is having a self-sabotaging frame and or putting a woman on a pedestal. Think of it this way. What a woman really wants is a man she inherently kind of doesn't deserve, who for some reason she has a special connection with. But if you're putting a woman on a pedestal, you're saying she's better than you, that you're not worthy of her time, that you're a burden in her life. And how is that the man who would be a prize if she were to win him over? Fundamentally, he's not. This mistake can become apparent anywhere between seconds to minutes into the interaction. Let me give you a couple examples. If you walk over and you say, "Hi, excuse me, I don't mean to bother you," already, what are you, a bother? You're not a bother, you're a massive opportunity. Or when giving a false time constraint, instead of saying, "Hey, I gotta go in a minute," you say, "I'll only take up a minute of your time." Or how about when closing? Instead of saying, "We should hang out sometime," you say, "Would you maybe want to talk to me again?" This mistake is often caused either by unconscious beliefs about yourself or about habits of just being too polite. Women are more than capable of rejecting you without you rejecting yourself first, so just don't do that. The next enormous mistake men make at the start of the interaction is being incongruent or failing shit tests. What do I mean by this? When you start an interaction with a woman in a confident, self-assured manner, she's likely to develop some level of attraction for you. But the problem is, this could be easily faked. You might have just memorized a pickup line. Or you might have just forced yourself to fake some confidence and adopt a little bit of swagger for the first 10 seconds. So women have an innate instinct to test men to find out if they're the real deal. We call these tests shit tests or congruence tests, and these are make or break moments in the interaction. If you pass these tests, you'll get massively more attraction, but if you fail these tests, you can see the light of attraction go out in her eyes, or you can see her really start to distrust you. How to pass shit tests is actually kind of a complex subject, which is why I've made several videos about it on the channel. I'll link those in the description. And while you're down there, go ahead and click the subscribe button. It helps massively with the algorithm and helps people find this information. The final early interaction mistake men make that I want to talk about is a failure to carry the conversation or to create intrigue. And this can feel a lot like either running out of things to say or asking a series of boring questions. Obviously, if you run out of things to say and fail to carry the conversation, and the girl is not yet ready to carry the conversation herself, the conversation is just dead, it's over, you're done. Much less bad, but still terrible, is the guy who realizes the conversation will be dead if he doesn't say anything, and so he follows up with boring questions. So, where are you from? So, what do you do? So, how long have you lived here? Etc. Now, I'm not saying you can never ask a girl a question, but if this is the majority of your conversation, or if you're stacking question after question with nothing in between, your conversation is going to be insanely boring. Beyond which, it's also going to be what I call value taking rather than value offering. See, whenever you ask an unthoughtful question, she's having a conversation she could have with literally any other human being on the planet. If you ask her, where are you from, any other person could ask that question and have that conversation with her. So she's not actually getting any value unique from you. If, on the other hand, you tell a story, have an opinion, make a tease, imply something about her, or ask the question in an insightful way, now you are offering value. And that's what I want you to aspire to. Now, how to actually have more interesting conversations is, of course, an enormous topic in scope, and I have lots of videos on the channel about that as well. So I'm not going to cover that here, but know that it's a thing and go check out those videos on the channel as well. I'll try and post some in the description. Okay, so that's it for the short-term mistakes I want to cover. If you do these things right, odds are you're going to get a lot of girls who are actually attracted to you 5 minutes or more into the conversation. Now you're effectively on a date of sorts. So let's talk about all the things you now need to do on that first date, that second date, all the dates up to when you're sleeping with the girl in order to maintain her attraction. So you've started the interaction with confidence, said some interesting things, maybe even passed some shit tests. The girl is definitely interested at this point, and at this point, she's going to start asking you questions. She wants to get to know you. But this presents a whole other range of obstacles. Who is the real you, and is that real you an attractive guy? This is the next place most guys screw up. You see, in any interaction, in any relationship, there's one person chasing the other one more than that person is chasing them back. Whoever is chasing more is the lower value person. And most men, when they're interacting with women, are inherently chasing. Now, chasing can occur in subtle and non-subtle ways. One of the most subtle is if every single thing the girl says, you say, oh, that's great. Oh, I agree. Oh, me too. This is what's called chasing rapport or chasing her frame. It makes you look pathetic, like you care too much about her, like you want to be too much like her, and you don't have any opinions of your own. The opposite of this, which is what I'd like you to do a little bit more, is actually be willing to disagree with the girl from time to time. If she says something you don't like, you can tell her, you know what, I'm not sure if I believe that. Or you can tell her, I'm not so into that. It's okay to disagree sometimes. Also, you can challenge her. Instead of her saying what she's into and you saying, oh, me too, what if you say what you're into and then challenge her on whether she can keep up? And one other major example of chasing is what frame do you have around the relationship? Are you constantly asking the girl for a date, or are you just giving her the opportunity to hang out with you? Are you constantly showering her with gifts and compliments, or are you being yourself and just being awesome and treating it as though you're both lucky to be there? Or if anything, maybe you're both lucky to be there and she's a little more lucky than you are. This phase of the interaction, where you're going on dates but haven't yet had sex, is defined very strongly by something I call evaluation. An evaluation basically is the idea that you are screening the girl. You are deciding whether she would make a good girlfriend. It's almost like a job interview where you have the job and she wants the job. You're testing to see if she's a good enough candidate. You like her enough to bring her in for an interview, but you're not fully sure. You like her enough to have her on the date, but you haven't committed that she gets to be your girlfriend yet. Contrast this to how the typical dating scenario goes. It's the woman who has all her dating guidelines and the man trying to jump through her hoops. Again, who's going to chase, you or her? If she's chasing, you're higher value. If you're chasing, she's higher value. Most guys are oblivious to these concepts. They've literally never thought about them, so it's no surprise they mess them up royally. So the dynamic between you and the girl of who's chasing who is going to have a dramatic impact on how much she sees you as a man of value. But the other thing that's going to have a huge impact is when she starts asking you questions, how do you actually answer these questions? How do you convey your life and lifestyle? Most men walk into a dating situation completely unprepared. They just show up and the girl grills them with questions and they think on their feet and try and come up with the best answer they can, probably in order to appease her, like we talked about before, and it doesn't go very well for them. But here's the thing. Girls are going to ask the same questions over and over and over again. This is like in school if the teacher gave you the test ahead of time and let you go study it with your book open before coming to the test. It would be irresponsible not to do so. You know you're going to be asked, what do you do for a living? So think of a way or ways to convey your job in a way that makes you seem as attractive as possible. Or maybe even the archetype of man who you want to be that is congruent to you, but also congruent to the girl you're across the table from. Think about the man you want to be. What is your absolute best self? And even, what is your absolute best self as viewed through the eyes of the woman you're with? You have the opportunity to construct answers which convey that man. If she says, what do you do for a living? You don't have to just say doctor or lawyer or I work in sales or whatever the truth is. You can say that in a way which tells your life story. You can say that in a way which illustrates high-value priorities. You can say that in a way which shows ambition or humanity or popularity. The point is, this is something you should be doing intentionally, not by accident. Now, there's a concept in game, which is actually a good one, of fake it till you make it. I'm not even telling you to do that here. I'm not even telling you to lie or be anything you're not. All I'm telling you to do is put your best foot forward. Present yourself in an interesting and high value way instead of a boring way. Also, as an aside, her asking you questions is very, very good. So if your answers to her questions provoke more questions from her, that's an additional bonus. Think of it this way. If she keeps asking questions, that means she's actively trying to get to know you and actively chasing even more. Now you might be asking yourself, okay, I know I want to convey myself in the best possible way, but what are attractive qualities in a man? If you're thinking this, well, it may seem strange that I keep saying this, but go check out the rest of the channel because that's another topic I've covered in a ton of depth. The next absolutely enormous mistake that almost every man makes during this phase of the interaction is a failure to escalate. And this may be down to a lack of balls or a lack of know-how. But in any case, if you keep going in circles, you're not going to get anywhere. You're here, sex is here. If you keep going here and don't go in that direction, the girl is very unlikely to make it happen for you. Now I'm going to give you 3 main examples of this. The first one is missing your escalation window. Going on date after date after date and not trying to kiss the girl. Or on the first date, not trying to get physical at all. Sex is a physical thing. If you're afraid to ever even touch the girl, you're not going to get to sex. Lack of progression in the verbal exchange. And this can come down to lack of making it more intimate in terms of the conversation, teasing more sexually, teasing more about you and her, talking about the idea of you and her in a relationship more explicitly. Or it can come down to lack of topical escalation. It's hard to escalate to sex while talking about the weather, but it's much easier while talking about passions, desires, vices, playing truth or dare, things like that. And finally, failing to ever make an attempt to take her home or not knowing how the hell to do so. You can have date after date after date that goes amazingly well. You make out at the end of the night. You're like, okay, well, that was fun. We should do it again. Okay, well, that was fun. We should do it again. Well, that was fun. We should do it again. And eventually she just is done. She's done it too many times. It's now boring to her. Newsflash. Women actually like sex. When they like a man, they want to have sex with him. If you keep not doing it, she's going to go find someone else who will. Also, she's going to lose massive attraction for you when she realizes you don't know how to sleep with her. The light goes out in her eyes and she realizes, oh shit, I thought I was on a date with a man, not a little boy. Listen, at some point you have to make a move, whether it's going for a kiss, sexualizing the conversation, or taking her home. You're the one who has to do it. Now, learning how to do all of this smoothly is actually one of the most advanced skills in game, and it's one of the things that sets a guy like me apart from almost every other single guy on the planet. In my first 9 months doing game, I did not kiss a single girl. Not because they wouldn't go on dates with me, not because they didn't like me, but because I didn't have the balls to do so. The first girl I kissed, I slept with. And then when I started having the balls to kiss girls after that, I started having sex consistently. I hadn't gotten better at game. All I did was grow a pair of balls. So all the nuance and skill of escalating smoothly is absolutely great, but the primary thing you need to start off with is a pair of balls. Here's the part where it gets a little heavy, and actually a big reason why I wanted to make this video. Why do women lose attraction in long-term relationships and yes, even marriages? So the first reason she might lose attraction is simple, but fairly taboo, so people don't talk about it. The fact of the matter is most men are pretty fucking terrible in bed. Now, let's be real. If you did get into a relationship with her, you got into a relationship with her being bad in bed, and you're going to continue the relationship being bad in bed. So it's fundamentally not in and of itself the full reason why she lost attraction. But let's also be honest, when you are good in bed, when you give a girl an amazing experience, it can make up for a lot of other shortcomings and flaws. It can provide a lot of incentive for the woman to stay with you in the relationship. Whereas when you're bad in bed, it can provide a lot of incentive for her to find other objections and other causes for concern. Now, I've done a whole video on how to be good in bed, so I'm not going to rehash that all here, but 2 quick points that are critical. Number 1, remember to do foreplay. Early on in the relationship, when you're seducing a girl, just meeting her, there is a lot of back and forth and foreplay. You're taking her out on dates, there's a lead up to sex, and that makes the sex really interesting and thrilling. In a relationship, it's very common that sex is happening less regularly. You're almost scheduling it. You're just doing it when you're tired. You're going through the motions. You're not treating it the right way. But if you continue to do foreplay, you're going to continue keeping the sex pretty good. And the other one is to remember that for a woman, sex is not just a physical act. It's also an emotional one. If it's the same every single time, if you're just going through the motions, that's not going to be exciting to her in the same way. Now, there's a lot about how to physically be better in bed. That's in the other video. But remember foreplay, remember the emotional components as well. And continuing along the thread of not being aware of a woman's emotions and not putting enough energy, this doesn't just happen in the bedroom. Oftentimes, men get very lazy in a relationship in general. Again, at the start of the relationship, when you're unsure whether you're going to sleep together, when you're unsure where it's going to go, men are presenting their best selves. They're showing up well-dressed, hair combed, bringing their best conversation. When men do actually get in a relationship, oftentimes they take it for granted. They sit around on the couch and barely talk to their woman. They dress like a slob, barely shower, and don't let her see them at their best. And one of the biggest things, they forget to flirt. You have to keep flirting in the interaction. We talked about short-term, medium-term, long-term. Yes, there is more flirting necessary in the short term just to make it work, and more flirting in the medium term than there is in the long term as a percentage of conversation. But you never stop flirting. If you stop flirting, you've just become friends that share the same house. You're no longer lovers. You're no longer in the same kind of relationship. So remember to keep putting in some effort, at least a fraction of what you did at the start. The next issue that comes up in these long-term relationship scenarios is down in large part to what a relationship even is. See, the courtship process is a lot like interviewing for a job. The dating process is a lot like doing the job. And there are some people that are very good at interviewing that are very bad at the job. There are also people that will promise you in an interview that they can do a lot of things, and then they won't deliver on the things they promised. If in the relationship you don't deliver on what you promised in the interview, the girl's gonna get turned off. So if when you met the girl, you're an ambitious go-getter with lots of hopes and dreams, and then when she's actually married to you, you sit around on the couch with chips and beer and watch sports all day and don't do anything about your ambitions, your hopes, your desires, your dreams, the girl, quite understandably, is not going to be amused by this. Often what I've seen happen with my students is that guys learn game and it actually becomes a catalyst for them to achieve in all areas of their life. Because they're learning game, because they're trying to be their best self, they go to the gym and they read a lot of self-help books and they work hard at their job, or they start a business, or they pick up new hobbies. And then when they get in a relationship, they get lazy and they stop doing these things. They stop doing the things that made them attractive. In fact, when you get in a relationship, you should treat this as an opportunity to take the time you were spending going out and meeting other women and use it to improve yourself, to improve your relationship, to improve your life, and to make it so that if the relationship ever did end, you'd come back onto the dating market as a more valuable asset than you left it. One other thing along these lines, just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean your social skills have to get rusty either. You can keep doing and learning game in a relationship without cheating. You can still talk to people. You can still flirt, but just don't have sex. Oh, and by the way, just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean you have to stop improving your social skills. You can work on public speaking, you can work on sales, you can be social in general, you can network. There are plenty of other ways to stay sharp. Bottom line, if you're not moving forward, you're probably moving backward. It's very hard to be stagnant in life. So keep pursuing your goals while you're in a relationship. It's good for your life, it's good for your soul, and it's good for the relationship. The next major mistake that men make to ruin long-term relationships is what we colloquially call getting whipped. What do I mean by this? Well, in a relationship, it's only natural for a woman to want more from you. You have this, she could make her life better if you were giving more to her, and so it's natural and normal, it's a human instinct to ask. And it's a human instinct, if you love the woman you're with, to want to make her happy. And so you see she asks for this thing, you give it to her, she seems happier, seems like you made the relationship better. And she asks again, you give in again, she seems happier, seems to have made the relationship better. And that works until it doesn't. Because what happens is this. She wants things from you as the man who she respects and the man who she's attracted to. But if you continue giving in over and over again, especially giving in on things you don't want to, giving in things that are compromises to your beliefs, giving in on things that are taking away from other more important things in your life, or taking away from your long-term goals, if that's happening over and over again, it seems like you're making the girl's life better by giving things to her. But at a certain point, each time you compromise yourself by giving in, you're lowering your value and lowering your value. At a certain point, your value gets so low, she no longer wants anything from you and the relationship is over. And this does seem to be quite the paradox. How is it that giving more to someone makes them like you less? But it does. So here's the solution to this. Number one, set boundaries. Set aside some time for yourself. Set aside some time for achieving your goals. Set aside some time away from your partner so you have your own individual personalities and you're not completely codependent. Also, set boundaries on what you will and won't do. It's good to be kind and contributory on your terms. It's bad to do things you don't believe in due to guilt or obligation or fear of reprisal, fear of anger, fear of losing your partner. And here's the thing, a soft no early in the relationship will save you a big no and a big fight later on in the relationship. Relationships are based on precedent. If you compromise who you are for the relationship in a little way, then you're going to be asked to do it a little more and a little more and a little more. And then when you finally stand up for yourself, it's going to seem totally out of character and like a big deal and actually unreasonable for you to stand up for yourself because you've established that it's normal for you not to. Whereas if you just stand up for yourself on that first instance where you feel uncomfortable, it'll probably be water under the bridge and it won't blow up into a huge thing. And surprisingly enough, sometimes a woman may find you saying no to her attractive. Remember early on when we talked about how trying to appease and chase the girl made you low value, whereas standing up for yourself and having standards made you high value? It's the same thing later on in a relationship as well. Another huge attraction killer and honestly relationship killer is when you don't get along with her friends or family or you're incompatible with her lifestyle. Now this one's a bit tough, but I'm going to give you a couple solutions. The first solution is an indirect solution, which is this. The more she likes you and cares about you because you've done everything else right, the more this will just kind of be okay and be more water under the bridge. There are plenty of relationships where the woman's parents don't love the guy she's dating, but it still works because they love each other enough. Secondly, when you do meet her significant people, in the same way that you had to win her over, you kind of may have to win them over. If you show up and you're your laziest, worst self, it's not fair to expect them to like you. If you don't put in any time, energy, or effort to establish a conversation with them, finding commonalities with them, getting along with them, it's not entirely their fault if they don't like you. And finally, in this one area, you might have to compromise a little bit with her full understanding. It may just be known between you and her that you love each other, she loves her parents, you don't love her parents that much, but you'll tolerate them and you'll be on your best behavior with them. And if you do that, maybe she owes you something in return, and that's completely fine. You don't have to be best friends with all of her friends and family. But if dating you fundamentally hurts every other relationship in her life, that is a major reason for her to lose attraction. And then the final relationship killer, and this one, honestly, if it happens, and you should actually just be happy you found out, is sometimes you and the girl just aren't compatible. Sometimes you're not a good fit. Sometimes you believe in different things. Sometimes you grow apart. Sometimes the sex is amazing, but she's not someone you want to raise kids with. These are all totally okay. This is why you have a dating life instead of just settling down with the first girl you meet. This is why you're watching this channel, so that you have abundance and can pick the girl that really is right for you. So if more often than not, when your relationships end, it's because you guys fundamentally weren't compatible, celebrate that. And actually celebrate that it ended so you can go meet a more worthy, more compatible girl for you. And finally, when it does happen this way, oftentimes you can actually part as friends, which is also nice. Not every relationship has to work out. But if you do the things on this list, the relationships that you really want to have work out are much more likely to do so. So whether it be short-term, medium-term, or long-term, stop making these mistakes. Start making your relationships better. So that's it. Thanks for watching. As promised, I'm going to post some links below to various other videos. And if you have an attraction killer story or theory, be sure and post it in the comments for the rest of us to read. Take care. See you on the next one.